Natalia Klimova woke up to it, lives in Maryino, a quiet residential district right next to the Kapotnya oil refinery on Moscow's southeast edge. She heard 10 explosions. She ran to her bathroom. The mirror was shaking. She said, and I'm quoting here, "It is honestly very frightening." Yeah, it is. Welcome to the war, Moscow. To understand June 18th, you have to go back 3 days, June 14th. Russia launched one of the largest aerial barrages of the entire war, 70 missiles and 611 drones, mostly aimed at Kiev. Not military installations, not weapons depots. Kiev, the city where people live. One of those drones hit the Kiev-Pechersk Lavra. If you don't know what the Kiev-Pechersk Lavra is, imagine if someone bombed Notre Dame. Now imagine it's 1,000 years old. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It was founded in 1051 AD. It is the spiritual heart of an entire nation. And priests were literally running through the smoke trying to save crucifixes and icons while the roof burned above their heads. That's what Russia hit. Zelensky called it one of Russia's most serious crimes against Christian culture to date. He visited the ruins himself, walked through the rubble, stood in the ash, surveyed what a Garan 2 drone does to an 11th century cathedral. Russia's official response was to say Ukraine's own Patriot missile must have done it by accident. Classic. 4 years of bombing Ukrainian heritage sites and their defense is still, bro, that wasn't us. Even their denials are insulting. Zelensky recorded a message from the ruins. If Ukraine burns, he said, your Moscow will burn too. He wasn't being poetic. Before we watch Moscow go up in smoke, you need to understand what Ukraine threw at it, because this is where it gets genuinely remarkable. Meet the Lyutyi. That's Ukrainian for fierce or furious. Either translation works honestly. The drone was developed in 2022 by Ukraine's state defense firm, directly modeled on Russia's own Iranian-made Shahed kamikaze drones. Ukraine basically looked at the weapons being used to destroy Ukrainian cities, said that's a great idea actually, and built a better version. If imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, Ukraine just flattered Moscow's refineries into rubble. The Lyutyi weighs 250 to 300 kilograms. It carries a 75-kilogram warhead specifically designed to fragment against exposed refinery equipment, which, as it turns out, refineries have a lot of. Militarny has documented strikes at ranges pushing beyond 1,700 kilometers. For reference, Moscow is roughly 500 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. The Lyutyi doesn't strain to reach Moscow. Moscow is a short commute, the part that keeps Russian air defense operators staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. The Lyutyi uses AI-guided terminal navigation, machine vision. In the final approach, when every electronic countermeasure Russia has is screaming at it, the drone looks at the ground, identifies its target, and adjusts its own flight path. You can't spoof it with GPS jamming because it's not trusting GPS anymore. It's using its own eyes at $200,000 per unit. A Western cruise missile runs about $3 million. Ukraine can launch 15 Lyutyis for the price of 1 Tomahawk, and each one is smart enough to find its target without anyone on the radio giving it directions. Russia spent decades building air defenses to stop ballistic missiles and high-altitude jets. They built the world's most expensive bouncer. Ukraine found the kitchen window. June 16th, pre-dawn hours, the Moscow oil refinery, MNPZ, Kapotnya district takes its first strike of the week. The ELOU AVT 6-unit catches fire. That's the primary crude distillation column, the processing heart of the entire facility. Think of it as the refinery's engine. Hit that, nothing else runs, the plant shuts down completely. Mayor Sergei Sobyanin confirms the hit on Telegram the way you'd post about a road closure. One drone damaged a facility at the MNPZ, no casualties, emergency services on scene. very calm, very composed. Moscow's primary fuel supplier is offline, and Sobyanin is essentially writing the municipal equivalent of minor disruption on the M10. Please use alternate routes. For context, the MMPZ supplies 40% of the petroleum products consumed in the Moscow region. That is not a peripheral installation. That is the refinery that keeps Moscow's cars running, its heating functional, its logistics operational. Ukraine hit it on a Tuesday like it was running errands. And all 4 Moscow airports, Sheremetyevo, Domodedovo, Vnukovo, Zhukovsky, simultaneously introduced flight restrictions to ensure flight safety, which is one way to describe it. Another way, Russia made Moscow's own airspace inaccessible to protect it from Ukraine using Moscow's airspace. Passengers at Sheremetyevo were evacuated from their aircraft. Aeroflot posted a telegram message urging people not to come to the airport. Russia's flagship airline communicating cancellation policy on a messenger app because Ukrainian drones are in the capital's sky. You'd think, after Tuesday, Russia would deploy everything it had to protect the Kapotnya refinery. They did not adequately do that. June 18th. 2 days later, before dawn, the drones came back. A resident near Kapotnya filmed it. A Ukrainian drone flying into a column of smoke already rising from the refinery. Air defense rockets chasing it, the drone hitting anyway, blowing the roof off a fuel tank and sending it tumbling into the air. 5 separate fires broke out across the facility simultaneously. Thick black smoke columns rose high enough to be visible from multiple districts across Moscow. Not just the southeast, but from across the entire city. Debris hit a fitness center. A shopping mall caught fire. An apartment building in Zhukovsky was evacuated. 17 people injured across the Moscow area, including 2 children. One Moscow resident told CNN she could smell the burning through closed windows. Another said, "I was sure the plant would burn sooner or later. I packed my things and went to my mom's dacha." Which, if you think about it, is a genuinely rational response to living next to one of Russia's most targeted facilities. Less a vacation, more an informed decision. A third resident described a strange numbness. "I think I burned out when I saw the photos from Ukraine," she said, "and now it's so close to me, and I seem to be numb to it." That numbness is, in a certain grim way, Russia's entire information problem with this war. 4 years of state TV reporting glorious Russian advances. 4 years of the word special doing a lot of heavy lifting. 4 years of maps showing Ukrainian territory shrinking. And now the capital's oil refinery is on fire for the second time this week. The airports are in chaos again, and people are standing on their balconies watching smoke drift across a city that state media has spent years describing as untouchable. TASS, not a publication known for its pro-Ukraine editorial line, described it as the most massive drone attack on the Moscow region in 2 years. Even TASS. Russia's defense ministry announced its air defenses shot down 555 Ukrainian drones nationwide. Mayor Sobyanin said 194 were intercepted on approach to Moscow alone. That's the number they're bragging about. And yet the refinery was on fire. 5 simultaneous ignition points, airports closed again, 17 injured, a mall burning. Russia is simultaneously claiming world-class air defense performance and watching their capital produce smoke columns visible from orbit. You cannot shoot down 194 drones and still have the target on fire. The math doesn't work. The smoke doesn't lie. Ukraine didn't send 194 drones expecting 194 to get through. Ukraine sent 194 at Moscow and 555 nationwide because volume is the strategy. Flood the system, exhaust the interceptors, saturate the targeting solutions, and somewhere in that swarm, a handful punch through. A handful is all you need when the target is a fuel tank. Ukraine is running a denial-of-service attack on Russian air defense. Flood the network until it crashes. It is working. Putin personally acknowledged the problem on June 9th, not by choice. His energy ministry issued a statement admitting Ukraine's strikes had caused supply disruptions. That was the first time. Prior to that, the official Kremlin line was that refineries were experiencing seasonal maintenance. Putin, the man who built his entire political identity on the image of an unbreakable Russia, was now explaining away burning fuel depots as a scheduling issue. The Kapotnya refinery isn't the story. It's the latest headline in a campaign that's been quietly breaking Russia's war economy for months. Ukraine has been running this campaign since 2024, but 2026 is different in scale. The tempo doubled. Ukraine started targeting the specialized secondary processing units, hydrocracking columns, distillation equipment, the components that take months to source and replace under Western sanctions. And the same facilities are being hit repeatedly before repairs are complete. The MNPZ was struck May 17th, then June 16th, then June 18th. Ukraine isn't giving Russia time to breathe between strikes. Analysts now estimate nearly one-third of Russia's total refining capacity, 2.14 million barrels per day, is offline. Fuel shortages span more than 25 Russian regions. Moscow and St. Petersburg both introduced gasoline rationing in mid-June. Lukoil stations in the capital capped sales at 100 liters per driver. This isn't a provincial problem. This is happening inside the capital of a country that produces more oil than almost anyone on Earth. Diesel on Russian exchanges is up 43% this year. Jet fuel up 40%. Russia banned gasoline exports April 1st and jet fuel exports June 1st, then quietly started allowing lower-grade Euro 3 fuel at pumps instead of the legal Euro 5 standard, trading quality for quantity, a very Russian solution to a very Russian problem. For a country that invaded a neighbor to restore imperial greatness, they are now serving their citizens the petrol equivalent of a participation trophy. On June 4th, Russia's deputy prime minister was cornered by reporters and admitted production had fallen due to, his exact words, unscheduled maintenance. 5 days later, the energy ministry finally admitted Ukraine's strikes had caused supply disruptions. The first official acknowledgement after months of blaming seasonal demand. Russia, one of the largest oil producers on Earth, spent months explaining away burning refineries as seasonal maintenance. The creative writing department at the Kremlin is earning its paychecks. An analyst at CREA put it cleanly. Ukrainian strikes have become more consequential in 2026, not because they've broken Russia's oil system, but because they're exhausting the system's ability to remain adaptable under stress. Russia is still running, but it's running on fumes, sometimes literally. While Moscow was burning, Zelensky was in Brussels, sitting at a table with NATO defense ministers who have spent 4 years carefully calibrating how much help is too much help. He'd also, hours before the attack, spoken by phone with both Trump and Macron. He described it as potentially bringing significant change. The timing was deliberate. Ukraine isn't just burning refineries. Ukraine is burning refineries while the cameras are on, while NATO is in session, while Trump is reconsidering, while Russia's own citizens are texting each other videos of smoke over Moscow. Each strike is simultaneously a military operation and a political argument. The main thing, Zelensky said after the attack, is that the people of Russia begin to feel that it is one man, Putin, who is waging this war, while ordinary people pay the price for everything. Ukraine wasn't just sending drones to Moscow that morning, they were sending a press release. Russia cannot fix this quickly. The processing units Ukraine keeps targeting aren't shelf items. They're custom engineered, measured in months to source, and Western sanctions make replacements harder to get. Ukraine keeps hitting the same sites before the previous repairs are finished. You can't rebuild what keeps burning. Western sanctions have already extended lead times on specialized components from weeks to months, and Russia has no domestic manufacturing alternative for the most critical parts. The drones are arriving faster than the replacements. A country can absorb losing ground. Russia has proven it can absorb losing men at a scale that would have ended most wars. Fuel is different. Fuel is what moves the whole machine, and Ukraine is draining the tank. Ukraine figured out that you don't have to defeat the Russian army on the front line. You can defeat the supply chain behind it with a drone that costs $200,000 and finds its own target. The refinery was still burning when this went out. In Mariino, Natalia Klimova had her windows closed. She could still smell the smoke. She heard 10 explosions. She ran for the bathroom. The mirror shook. The building trembled. She's 25. She lives 9 miles from the Kremlin. And she spent her Thursday morning waiting for her apartment to stop shaking while Moscow's main oil refinery burned outside. She didn't choose this war. Neither did the woman who drove to her mother's dacha because she saw this coming. Neither did the 527 passengers whose flights were canceled while Aeroflot sent them telegram messages. One man started it, one man is keeping it going, and for the first time in 4 years of official invincibility, his own capital is learning what the rest of the war looks like when it arrives at your window. Ukraine isn't sending drones to Moscow out of anger. They're sending them as a message. Every smoke column over Kapotnya is a sentence in that message. Russia reads it on the morning news, then turns the page. Zelensky isn't waiting for Russia to turn the page. He's lighting the next one on fire.